Welcome to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you for joining me. In this episode, I interview Joseluis Naranjo from Northrop Grumman. His story is fascinating. You will discover about his accomplishments and tenacity of finishing a career in MIT. You will also learn about the love from his parents and the encouragement he received early from his family. The instillment of playing and love for music at an early age. We will get to discover what it was and what it took for him to finish MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and graduate with an aerospace engineering degree, and how he was able to achieve an internship in various locations and how that has taken him to be at the position that he currently holds. Welcome, Joseluis. Thank you. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you so much to the audience and to the viewers. This is an audio as well as a video, so please check it out, and I hope you listen to it and pay attention because this is going to be a special one. Today, I have the honor of having Joseluis Naranjo from Northrop Grumman with me. He went to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and that is an awesome accomplishment. He works for Northrop Grumman, and he's been there for about 11 years. And regardless of him having a spinal injury, he has been a successful individual, and he's been a persistent individual. So now, welcome, Joseluis. Thank you for being here with me with Success Innovation. So can you please tell us a little bit about your background and who you are, and well, kind of just guide us through your early beginnings?
Well, I guess I can go as early as, I was born in Tijuana, Mexico,
right.
To my parents, obviously, and we immigrated here when I was 3 years old. Moved here to San Diego, or San Isidro here, California. Where I did most of my schooling, elementary school and high school. I went to Chula Vista High School and here in Chula Vista. Right. And yeah, as Lázaro mentioned, I eventually had an interest in math and science, and from a very young age and over a very long time. Right. I had an interest in and was good at math, and not that I was just good, but I worked really hard at it. Had a lot of really great teachers and a lot of long hours and a lot of studying. But eventually, I applied to MIT, where I majored in aerospace engineering.
Okay, awesome, fantastic. So let me go back to elementary school, and obviously I mentioned your spinal injury. At that time, you were walking. You were a fully functional individual, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, not that you're not now, but
able-bodied. That's it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm sorry about that, but you were your body, your limbs were functioning without assistance. So, at what age you mentioned STEM, math, science, math, technology, and engineering? What was your first exposure to engineering?
My first exposure to engineering. So I don't know if, I guess you can just say as a young kid, right? I would look up at the
stars,
at the skies,
okay,
the stars, right?
Yeah.
I was very curious about the universe and space and and rockets, and so I just thought it was really cool to see those kinds of things, or I'd watch shows on television with my parents, whether it's National Geographic or just documentaries about those kinds of things.
Wow,
that would spark an interest. But
what's the show that you can pinpoint or recall that you really enjoyed watching with your parents? Was it a documentary? Was it Nova? Was it National Geographic or something like that, or Discovery
I would say
Channel?
I don't know if it was a show per se. I think it was more a book, actually. It was more like an encyclopedia type of book. I don't remember the name of it. My parents had a series of nature books, if you will, and I remember one was about space, and it had pictures of galaxies and things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, there were all sorts of documentaries that I remember too. Not necessarily about space per se, but just nature in general. I mean, I just can't remember the name right now.
Right.
But,
so, what age were you at that time?
I don't know. I must have been,
It was
7,
early.
8.
7, 8.
Yeah,
so it was early.
Yeah.
Your imagination started going at an early age when you were like second, third grader, maybe at that age.
Yeah.
Off of that, you're interested in space. You obviously probably wanted to be an astronaut because that was something that interested you at some point. Maybe a fighter pilot, possibly.
Well, actually, I don't know. I just thought that the rockets and the planes and the space was cool. I don't know if I ever myself wanted to be an astronaut or a pilot, but I just thought those just in general. I just thought that was a cool area.
So you grew up and then you fall into high school. What high school did you attend?
Chula Vista High School.
Chula Vista High School. So in high school, what was the teacher or the science class that inspired you to pursue engineering? And how did you find out specifically about aerospace engineering? Out of all the engineering fields, why did you pursue aerospace and not mechanical, chemical, or any other ones?
I don't know if I can credit a single, even high school teacher, right? Okay. I think I'd have to go back as early as elementary school, I don't think math and science was not one of those things that I just woke up one day and I felt like this is what I want to do, right? I said that I was interested in, space, and that was just a curiosity, right? But you also have to work at it and get good at something, which is, the math and the science. So I feel like it's one of those things that, I had good teachers and, credit to my parents that would, say, do your homework and you have to study and work hard.
So your parents were a key part of your development and academic persistence because they would instill in you and push you to continue to do whatever you needed to do and develop that discipline that you later in the future would need.
Right. So it's one of those things that over time, when you work on something and you practice something, you get better at it. Initially, you're not very good at it, right? Exactly. The way I look at it, it's kind of like pushing a car, right? Where initially it's really hard, right? But over time, you start to move it a little bit more.
You build that momentum.
You build more momentum and you get better and better. So I feel like with math and science, early on, I was probably not very good at it, but over time I got better and better but when I got to high school, I had a lot of momentum going into it. And I guess I learned to enjoy it. Not that I said I just like doing math and science, but because I got good at it, I saw, I guess you can say, the beauty in it, right? Over time, you get better at it, you appreciate it, you enjoy it. And so I coupled that with my curiosity in, space and, rockets and planes.
Awesome.
And it was more of like, oh, okay, well, I guess the natural fit is aerospace engineering.
Right.
So it was more a combination of working on something like math and science over a long time and getting good at it, with the curiosity that said, oh, well, I think aerospace engineering seems like the natural fit.
Okay.
So
So during high school, you're going through the regular classes. At that time, was there a robotics team or a science club in your high school in Chula Vista High that you were part of? Or not really?
I was not part of like a robotics class. Okay. I was a part of, we did have a math team, if you will.
Okay.
I was part of another organization. It's called Academic League.
Okay.
That I competed in.
Right. Kind of like Jeopardy type.
Yeah, exactly. You can think of it like or
yeah.
some academic decathlon, they call it type of thing.
Where you compete with other peers, different high schools, and you answer different questions. It could be about, in this case, it was more math, right? More math. Okay, understood. So when you're in your senior year, you obviously wanted to apply to different colleges, and you did. And was MIT your first choice?
To be honest, it wasn't.
It was not.
It was not
what
my
was
first
your first choice.
It was not my first choice. My first choice was actually UC Berkeley.
UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
Okay, but you applied to MIT, and MIT is a very prestigious college, and the connotation of just saying MIT, to some individuals and to the audience, it might be a very daunting goal to reach, to even get in there. How did you feel to get accepted to MIT?
It was shocking. I was I don't know if you can say surprised, excited, obviously, right? I was very excited, very proud. Yeah, because I originally, like I said, my I had an older sister, that went to UC Berkeley, and I think that was a big inspiration, to see her go there. I visited the campus. They had a great engineering program, and I was set on that. But at the same time, I knew MIT was known as the best university for aerospace engineering.
Right.
And so I was encouraged, by my counselors in high school to apply. And so I did, right? I was like, okay, well, I'll apply.
Right.
So it's not that I had the confidence.
But you were not really expecting to get accepted.
To some extent, really, I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if I had, if I was, if you will, good enough to get into MIT.
Right.
But my counselors thought I was, and so they encouraged me to apply, and I did. And sure enough, I got the acceptance letter, and I was super excited. I mean, I guess I don't know how it is to say it, but just,
So when you get this acceptance letter, you tell your family, you tell your parents, and everybody's really cheering for you. And when it gets near to the point of actually leaving home for the very first time, because you're about 18, right? And it's not just like you're going up to UC Berkeley, which is a couple hours away. It's across the country, over Massachusetts. It's not even California. It's a different time zone. And your parents are going to be far away. The weather's totally different. The culture is different. What was, when you actually got there, what was your feeling?
It was, let's see, very welcoming. Actually, because I remember, I got accepted and I told my mom, and my mom was like, well, where's that? I had to bring out a map, and I said, we are down here, this corner of the country. MIT is at the opposite corner of the country, right? But yeah, when I arrived, I had that concern, who am I going to know, and just the community there, there were,
Do they go by quarter or by semester?
By semesters.
By semester.
Yeah.
So your first semester there, what was from the first time that you set yourself in the class and then you're going through the motions, and then at the end of your first semester, what was your impression and how did it change? Was it what you expected? Was it too fast paced? Was it too overwhelming, or were you just fine?
It was intense.
Okay.
It was very intense. It was very hard. I guess I knew it was going to be hard, but I guess the way we like it, like to say it at MIT, it's like drinking water from a fire hose.
Okay.
Coming from Chula Vista High School, where you're arguably near the top of your class, one of the top students, and the pace was much slower. Here at MIT, everything was much faster. All the other students around you were top notch as well. But that's what was great about it, that everybody was in the same boat, right? We were all, to some extent, being very, very challenged, and we're all feeling how intense it is week in, week out. And so that very first semester, it was you can say a rude awakening, right? Just to know that when I was in high school, I only had to study, say so many hours. At MIT, I had to double, triple, quadruple that effort, to just, be able to sustain.
At what point did you realize that you had to put in more effort than what you were doing in high school?
I would say after I, to be upfront of it, after I failed my first exam.
You failed your first exam.
Yeah.
Which class was that first exam? Because that is key for you realizing that, oh my God, this is a rude awakening and I got to step up my game.
That was my chemistry class, my intro to solid state chemistry class.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, okay. that was to say the least. I was not doing well, and I had to, going into the final, really step it up a lot, and study a lot to get a passing grade into the class.
Okay.
So at MIT,
just get a passing grade. You mean you just wanted to be able to get a C? You weren't shooting for an A at that point. You were just like, I hope I can get a passing grade so I don't have to repeat the class.
Well, at MIT, the very first semester, they understand that it's a shock to all new students, and so they don't have grades, if you will. The very first semester, it's just pass, no record.
Okay.
And so you only get a pass or no record. So I was at risk of not passing, right? And so that class, but sure enough, I work extra hard, if you will, going into that final. I went to office hours, went to see the professor, got another tutor, and eventually I've ended up doing well enough on the final to pass the class.
Is that something that you were not doing at the beginning of the semester, and after that fail in the midterm, you essentially said, I need to step up my game and this is what
Absolutely.
I need to do? How did you learn that that's the stuff that you needed to do? Did you find an organization, student organization, where you found student mentors that helped you through that? Or did you just figure it out on your own by mimicking what other students were doing?
To some extent, it's mimicking what other students are doing. But I mean, MIT has a lot of, resources for a lot of freshmen. And so they have, different tutors and office hours, with the student tutors, and then you can go to office hours with the professors as well. And so they said, hey, these are opportunities. These are resources that are available to you. Take advantage. And so then that's what I did. But a lot of times, at MIT, like it's a very tight knit community, and so. Often a lot of our peers, we study together, right. And you usually see the students that are doing well. Well, what are they doing, right? Well, yeah, they are going to office hours. Right. They are going, putting the extra hours to study. Right. So yeah.
Okay. What was? Is there a particular organization that you belonged to during the MIT years that you were there?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was there, I was part of several organizations. One was, SHIP, Society of Hispanic and Professional Engineers. Right. There was another one called Lucha, La Unión Chicana por Aztlán.
Okay. It's kind of like Mecha?
Kind of like Mecha, okay. Exactly. Right. Okay. And there was another one, we like to have a clever name. It was called the Mariachi Institucional del Tecnológico.
What is that? MIT. What is that organization?
It's a mariachi. It's a
really?
Mariachi. So I actually I joined a mariachi at MIT, and I learned to play the vihuela. So,
really? So you played other instruments too, right?
I do. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you play. What's your other instrument that you play?
I actually also play the flute that I played since I was in 3rd grade, and so all the way through high school.
Okay. Just for our audience, I know Joseluis from before I was married, and during my wedding ceremony at the church, he was actually playing the flute. So if would be nice if he could share with us a little bit of the favorite, musical piece that he actually enjoys.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have the flute set up here, and we're gonna have him demonstrate.
A little warmed up here, so.
Yeah.
So play an excerpt from, I guess it's from Carmen Suite. Okay. The 2nd movement, I believe. So.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
How did you pick up the musical instruments? How did that passion develop?
Well, I think it has to start with my parents, right? I mean, they were very much into music. I just hear they love music, and they would play music on the radio, and so I would just hear it all the time. And then growing up, I went to Nickoloff Elementary School as part of the South Bay Union School District, where they had a music program available for all of us. And so I guess it all started with my older sister, Lila, who played the flute actually as part of that. As part of that music program.
So she was in the wind instrument section of that program.
Right.
Okay.
And so
and you just went in and you said, well, I want to play the flute. So.
Well, actually, I wanted to play, the drums originally,
right.
because, like I said, growing up, my dad would listen to a lot of jazz, so I liked the drums.
Wow. Okay.
And then I was like, well, the drums, it's too noisy, too expensive. Then I said, well, I want to play the saxophone.
Right.
And so at the time, it was I guess, a financial challenge for my parents to get a saxophone. And so my sister, so I said, well, I still want to be part of the music program.
Right.
And so the flute was there because my older sister played it.
Oh.
And so, as you needed an instrument to join the program, when I was in third grade.
So did you guys share the instrument, or?
So actually my sister, after a few years, she decided she no longer wanted to play. And so I ended up taking her instrument. And so, I just took the flute and I said, well, I'm going to take the flute now. And maybe eventually I might, my parents might be able to afford a saxophone.
Right.
But I guess over time, I just started playing the flute, and I eventually got good enough at it that I just kind of, stuck with it.
Nice.
I did eventually play the saxophone for a couple of years, thereafter, but by then I was just so much better at the flute that
you just devoted your time more to the flute.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And so,
have you noticed that there's a benefit from you playing a musical instrument and taking engineering courses? Has that helped you a lot?
In hindsight, I absolutely feel that going through a music program and playing music absolutely helped me with just my academic and mental performance. It's a mental exercise. Reading music, day in and day out. I just feel like it just fires different aspects of your brain. And I feel like it definitely helped me in just being more mentally apt and fluid, I guess. I don't know.
So that leads us back into the mariachi consortium over in MIT. When you go to MIT and you join this mariachi, did you have any expectations? And if you did, what were they? But if you didn't, what is the biggest surprise that you got out of joining that organization?
Well, the surprise that there was even a mariachi at MIT. Nobody really expects that to happen.
Right.
But we had a good group of musicians and talented musicians who they themselves had previously played mariachi.
Okay.
And I was just inspired by the fact of how good they were. And so I saw the opportunity to learn.
Right.
There was a classmate of mine who played the vihuela.
Okay.
His name is Alfredo Bocanegra, I remember, and he played the vihuela so well, and I was just like, man, that's so cool. I was like, well, I know music, right? I know how to read music.
Right.
If you teach me, I'll learn. And
was it difficult to pick up a string instrument once you were more used to doing the wind instrument?
I think that the difficulty was just the mechanics of learning, just the fingerings and all of that, right? And just practicing.
Really?
I understood the concept of rhythm and timing and all of that, and intonation and balance, and obviously, playing in orchestras and so forth. But yeah, it was just learning just the mechanics of the instrument itself.
Right.
And mariachi itself, as stylistically, is very different from say orchestral or symphonic music that I was more accustomed to. Right. But obviously, I grew up in a Mexican household, and a lot of the songs I knew
based on that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I also had a younger sister who also played in a mariachi.
Awesome.
Previously, and so I just had a lot of that around me that inspired a lot of me to not only learn but appreciate it and be a part of it.
Okay. I'm gonna go back. You mentioned your early years, and this is gonna be about how you went through an accident.
Mm-hmm.
What happened on that day? It might be, you probably remember it quite well.
I do.
Like that specific incident. What happened? Can you kind of walk us through if it's okay?
So this was after my second year, after my second year at MIT. I had just finished my second semester. Right. In May, finished finals. I came back home, and then Memorial Day weekend, I'm on vacation. I go with some of my family members, my cousins, my brother and my sister. We all go down to Rancho Santa Veronica, which is I don't know how many miles east of Tijuana.
Okay.
Here in Baja. We were riding ATV motorcycles, those 4-wheel motorcycles, and
you guys are just there to have fun, to enjoy the day, to have
we're out there camping. Memorial Day we're out there camping. Carne asada. Just family.
Were you the one driving or riding?
I was
controlling the motorcycle.
Yeah, so I was riding.
Did you have any passengers on the back, or was it just you, helmet, padding, whatever you needed? Was that something that you had?
I was just riding the one bike, and there were 2 others that were riding ahead of me. But typically we take turns riding the bikes, because there was only, I think 3 of them at the time. And so I was riding one of them, and I had a helmet and, the right protection, but I arguably was not the most experienced driver. I had only really driven one maybe 2-3 times prior to that, but I wasn't a very experienced driver. And so, I was going, there's dirt roads, and out in the, out at the ranch there. I was going into a turn, and in the turn, at the turn up ahead, I couldn't see what was there.
Okay.
And so
it was a sharp corner type of thing.
It was relatively sharp, and so I was turning, but at the far end there was a big ditch. Like a big, when it rains, it opens up a big ditch.
Right.
Maybe like 3 feet wide, that I didn't see. And so when I turned, I essentially went right into it, and the front 2 wheels got stuck. The bike essentially, it went in, it buckled on me. I flew off the bike and then landed on my back.
So you flew off the bike.
And broke 2 vertebrae, and compressed my spinal cord enough to essentially not, damage the nerves, to not be able to move or feel my legs below the level of injury, which is around, mid back here.
So during that fraction of a second when that accident actually happened, you're flying through the air and you land. Your body goes into shock and you pass out. When you wake up,
actually, I did not pass out. I was conscious the whole time.
You were conscious the whole time. So when you fall and you're on the ground, are you face up or face down?
I think I was kind of like face down a little bit. Yeah, I was face down.
So you fall and you're face down, and you're trying to push yourself off with your arms that are functional, and you obviously want to pull your legs under to push up, but nothing happens.
Right.
How did you feel?
To be honest, my first reaction was, God, why?
Really?
I remember, I fell, and I immediately, felt the shock, and it was a weird sensation that I just kind of felt like my lower body, shut down, but I didn't comprehend what was happening. Right. And I was trying to get up, and I couldn't, and I just said, God, why? And then immediately after, I guess, I don't know, I just said, I guess, God, I leave it in your hands. It was more like, God, why? But then I was like, okay, well, I leave it in your hands. And then from there, I was trying to get up, but my legs wouldn't respond. I couldn't really understand why. And then, I guess I was just slowly started processing. I was like, all right, well, calm down, you'll be all right. Leave it in God's hands. And then eventually...
Then you're there for a couple minutes. I don't know how many, but then people probably came looking for you, or they immediately heard the crash or the turnover of the bike, and they come running, and they pick you up, or they ask you questions.
Right, so actually it was my family that was driving behind me in a pickup truck, right? Okay. Some of my cousins and my brother and my sister, they see the bike, that was, rolled over, and then eventually they find me. Right. And so, and then they said, okay, well, hey, be very careful, I don't know if I told them I can't feel my legs or anything like that, but, so they eventually carried me and put me on the back of the big pickup truck. Yeah. On the bed of the pickup truck, and then from there, they drove me slowly because it was a bumpy road, and I guess I was in somewhat pain, in a little bit of pain.
Right. Now you mentioned it was your cousin, so it was all the younger crowd of your family.
Right.
So they drive you to the hospital. How far away was the nearest hospital?
So they actually drive me from the accident site to our campsite, which is maybe like half an hour. Then from there, they drive me up to the nearest little clinic. That was a small clinic
Right.
that was there, and then from there. They actually call an ambulance because again we're at a ranch that's
Right, it's
not
a rural area.
Yeah, it's a rural area. It's not near a big
cell
city.
phone towers are not available, or maybe you couldn't really get in contact with anybody. So whatever emergencies happened, whoever was there needed to help you out as much as they could.
Right.
And whatever support they could give you at that point was all they had. And then you get to that clinic. And then you get to the hospital because the ambulance comes.
Right, ambulance comes. They take me to the nearest hospital in Tecate. And then from there, they assess the situation. They're asking me, where are you from? It's like, oh, we're from San Diego. Well, they said, yeah, it's probably best that
if you cross over. And
cross over and they take you. So we go, they take me to the border in Tecate. We cross over. Funny story actually is that initially when you get to the border, they say, well, where's his passport? We need in order to cross. And initially, my sister's like, well, we don't have it. It's like, I have his ID though, because my sister had my ID.
Right.
And they were looking at me, and the sister was like, hey, we can't find your name. Your name doesn't match, because I think my dad also had the same name, and so there was an issue.
Right.
And then for whatever reason, when I was in the ambulance, laying on my back, I remember I was like, you know what?
My passport.
My passport's in my back pocket.
You had it in your back pocket?
I had it in my. Who's like, who's riding motorcycles? Right. Yeah, so I
with the passport in the back pocket.
Yeah, and so I guess it
was meant to be. It was
God was looking out for me or something. Right. But they pull it out, and eventually, I cross the border. There's a helicopter waiting for me there.
Right. So you got helicopter.
I got airlifted to the I think it was. Scripps Mercy Hospital in San Diego, and then from there, the rest is history.
So all this is going on. Where are your parents? And how did your mom and dad find out?
So my parents were back home here in San Isidro, and then eventually somebody, one of my family members, gave them a call.
Yeah.
And let them know. And so I guess they told them that they were going to take me to the hospital in San Diego, and as soon as they found out,
they probably rush over and meet you over there, and they try to figure out what happened, try to get the backstory of what happened. A couple of days probably go by when you're still in the hospital. At what point did you get the news from the doctor? Obviously, they have to run some tests. At what point did the doctor actually have a meeting with you and your parents, I'm assuming, and break the news to you guys? And how did you feel?
So it wasn't until I had probably over a week and a half afterwards, after I had my surgeries. I actually broke my arm as well, so I had a surgery on my arm, my wrist, and then also surgery on my back. So the doctors typically with these kinds of injuries, they want to wait and see because everybody's a little bit different, and the extent of the injury is different. And so sometimes you may not feel, anything for the first few days, but after a week or after a couple of weeks,
your body starts healing up and recovering.
It starts to heal, and so it must have been, maybe like maybe 2 weeks after the accident or something, that I guess I was never really given a clear answer, and then I just asked one of the neurosurgeons, hey, so what's the deal, And they basically said that it was very unlikely, that I was ever gonna regain, and ever walk again.
When they tell you that, did you already have a sense of, I knew this is the way it's gonna go? Or was it like a cold ice bucket falling on you at that point?
I think I still had hope that, that the initial injury that happened and I was gonna heal up, and I would get eventually I would regain some sensation and movement. But when he told me that, I broke down. It was like a bucket of ice, ice water over me. I guess a lot goes through your mind in that instance.
What was the biggest thing that you can recall that went through your mind at that very moment?
It just felt like a lot of my life was being taken away from me. Whether it was my love of sports and playing, soccer and basketball, dancing. I guess a lot of those things, physical activities. I was a very active, very athletic person.
Right.
So initially, that was my thought. My other thought was just trying to get back to school and just trying to get to my life, if you will. So
and the reason I'm asking this is because you obviously managed to finish MIT and you're an aerospace engineer, but this happened right at the middle of your college career.
Right.
So there's a before and there's an after.
Right.
There's a Joseluis that had dreams before, that was doing activities, and there's a Joseluis that is now in the hospital. And all of a sudden, those dreams have to be changed and modified. Not saying that you had to give up on them, but there must have been a point at that moment where you said, what am I going to do? Is this still even possible? So you get out of the hospital. Things at home have to change. You have to adapt to, moving, being independent in a wheelchair and driving yourself, being able to get into places. Opening a door is also a problem. Right. As simple as it is for able-bodied individuals to open the door and just squeeze in, you now have to learn how to open the door, maneuver the wheelchair with one hand, and then squeeze in there. Little bumps take a trick because now you have to tip over a little bit, but balance yourself. So you have to find balance. Right. How was that process of adapting? And was there a frustration period? And how did you overcome it? And what happened through that time?
As you mentioned, it was a learning process, right? You have to learn how to do everything all over again. Right. Everything from just those first few years, I would say, a lot of it is just feeling like you have control of your body. Right. Feeling stable in your chair, learning how to go over things, taking care of, yourself.
Just the simple stuff of going to the restroom or taking a shower. Absolutely. Or even putting your pants on or whatever. Absolutely. Tying your shoes. That as simple as it sounds, that is something that an independent person has to know how to do. Right. And you had to relearn, retrain your brain, retrain your body of how to go about doing those things. What would you say the biggest motivator in your life was? Who was that key person that helped you through that?
Oh goodness, I don't know if I can single out a key person. I would obviously first start with obviously my mom and my entire family. Okay. But certainly, being in the rehab facilities, my mom would be there literally every single day. Okay. She'd be the first one in the hospital.
What's your mom's name?
Socorro.
Maria. So shout out to his mom, Maria del Socorro. Who supported you through that hard time. And obviously your dad, he was probably behind there. Right. But she was probably one of your keystone in your support in going through all of this. So you're going through, now you have to go back to school. Right. How do you tell the school, hey, this happened, and how do they deal with it to support you as an individual? Right.
So as you mentioned, right, I going through this entire process, it was having that support network was absolutely key, right? And it obviously first started with my family, like I mentioned, my mom and my dad and my siblings, who all would come visit, put their studies and their priorities aside. And then when I got to MIT, obviously one of my sisters, came with me, that very first week, if you will, back to help me get adjusted and organize my things. But then all of my friends there, again, going through this process absolutely was, I was, obviously I had put in my effort, but having them, my friends, my even the professors, the school, the office for students for disabilities, I forget what the office was called.
So you went to that office at that
absolutely, point, and they said, hey, whatever it is that you need, we'll help you get the right, adaptive equipment that you need, get, obviously anything that you, And so they were just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like just having them made it so much easier to, one of my objectives, just get back to school and get back to what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And just having my friends there and everybody around me that was previously there still be there. Right. I think I can't say enough how much that meant to me. You know.
Was there a point during that transition period, going back in and your life changing drastically? Was there a point where you felt unsure of whether you were going to be able to make it?
To be honest, no. I don't think. I always felt like my, I got injured in May 2005. Memorial Day weekend, May 29, 2005. By September, I was back at MIT. Okay. Against the recommendation of my doctors, hey, you should spend more time rehabbing. You should,
So you needed to get back in motion and get things going.
My motivation was like, you know what, this happened.
It ain't gonna stop you.
My objective was to get back to school and finish, and nothing was gonna stop me. And to be honest, I never had a doubt that I was not gonna finish, because that was my motivation. It's like, you know what, this happened, but I guess I just wanted to prove to myself and maybe others and everybody that despite this, I'm still gonna keep going.
So you go through 2 years go by, you're at that graduation ceremony in MIT. What's rushing through your mind when you're in your graduation regalia, the black gown? I don't know if you had an honors or not, but you had your graduation hat with the beret on the side, and you're just rolling through, because you're rolling at that time, right? Right. And you get to shake the dean's hand, who's handing you the certificate. What goes through your mind at that point?
I guess,
and your family obviously is in the audience, and they're cheering for you when they hear your name, Joseluis Naranjo. Everybody claps and is happy. What goes through your mind?
Just how thankful I was of just being there,
right? Yeah.
I guess all the hard work going back to when I was a kid, to obviously all the hard work after my accident as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I managed to get through it. Yeah.
That you managed to get through it. The celebration, the congratulations from everybody, your friends, your family. You guys probably went out to dinner to celebrate your graduation. You go to whatever restaurant there, and you have a happy time. So a couple months go by, and maybe even before. Did you already have a job lined up?
I did, actually. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had you done internships?
Yeah. So previously I had done an internship with Northrop Grumman.
Okay.
That summer before.
The summer before.
Right.
Okay. And that was with Northrop Grumman. And all of a sudden, did they extend an offer for a full-time position off of that internship?
No, actually.
No.
Well, actually, they did call me, but originally I actually applied for another position.
Okay. At another company, or
at another company?
Okay.
That I worked at for I guess it just was not what I wanted to do eventually. Okay. So I actually ended up after graduation teaching at a nonprofit, actually, math and science.
So you wanted to be a teacher?
So actually going through high school, I actually tutored, and so I guess teaching was something I very much appreciated doing, and so I tried it out for a little bit, working at a nonprofit in San Francisco, so Making Waves, education program.
Okay.
So
how long were you there for?
I was there for about, I would say maybe 4 months or something like that.
So you would consider it an internship type of thing, or a learning experience of testing out the waters of whether you wanted to be a teacher in a nonprofit and what that entailed. And then when you go and you realize, at what point did you realize, okay, this teaching gig is not really all that, and I don't see myself doing it for the next 20 years?
Right, and so not that I didn't see myself doing it. I think for me, I was still on the fence as to whether I wanted to do engineering or not. Okay. And so I feel like I just had to, I guess, try it, to kind of really know whether I wanted to do it or not. And so I ended up applying, I guess, with Northrop Grumman as well, up in the Bay Area.
And you get a call from them.
And I get a call.
You get an interview,
right.
And then you get the call back a couple weeks later saying, hey, we're interested in having you come in. At this time, were you still in MIT?
No, by this time I had already graduated.
You had already graduated. Were you still in San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're in San Francisco, you're at the teaching nonprofit organization.
Right.
And then you just transition over to Northrop Grumman.
Correct.
Into that position. How was that transition? How did that change your mind and your perception of you being in this nonprofit organization and now going into an industry job? There's a difference there. I mean, the pay is higher.
It was, right.
And then you're not necessarily teaching individuals.
Right.
You're actually doing engineering work, whatever that might have entailed at that point. So it has a different impact. How did that make you feel?
I just felt I was kind of like starting college or a new level, like all over again, right? You know, you're the new person, you know, so you're motivated to learn and to figure out things, right? So you're eager to, just try to contribute as much as you can. So starting off, you know, I was given a task, and you know, the group that I joined was like performance analysis, doing you know, work in the area that I kind of enjoyed most which was thermodynamics, you know, thermal fluid kind of analysis. And so for me, you know, given, say, you know, they gave me these performance analysis codes that I just really dug into, right? And say, you know, here's the study that we want you to do. And so, I researched as much as I can of that particular topic, you know, reviewed a lot of the documentation reports, you know, historical reports that, you know, the company had, and just to get myself up to speed on the system, you know, and the organization, you know, and obviously my peers, and getting to know everybody. So
did that make it more fulfilling to you as an engineer per the material that you studied in MIT, and that made it worth your while to actually go into Northrop Grumman?
Absolutely. So I think for me, you know, when I entered with Northrop Grumman the year before, you know, when you're an engineer, you know, you're studying, you're not really exposed to all the different types of engineering roles that are within an engineering organization. So there's people that do design and, you know, and drafting, and they CAD things, you know, with computer, you know, CAD, you know, software, or there are people that do testing, there are people that do systems engineering, analysis. And so I wasn't aware of all of these different kinds of roles. But when I did my internship, I was in a systems engineering group, which...
So that's what kind of gave you a little doubt, and that's why you went to the teaching nonprofit organization.
But then I kind of enjoyed the analysis, right? I was like, you know, I like getting into the, you know, the calculations and the equations and crunching the numbers, if you will. So when I interviewed with then this full-time position in the Bay Area, that was the position, and so I enjoyed it a lot more. And so just being in that role was I'd say more fulfilling, because, you know, I was very much applying a lot of the you know, the principles of thermodynamics, and, you know, and you know, linear algebra, and, you know, all of these things to essentially solve problems.
All the engineering class courses that you had, and that made it come back, and you were actually, you know, using all those tools in those classes. That was awesome.
Found myself.
So you're in San Francisco, and all of a sudden, you know, you're there for like 10, 11 years, and you transfer down to LA through Northrop Grumman, different position. Is that different position a similar task, different, and how did that come about?
So I actually still work for the same Northrop Grumman up in the Bay Area.
Okay.
I just happen to work remotely. Down here in LA. Okay. And so the opportunity presented itself, and so, you know, now in you know, 2020, it's increasingly common for people to work remotely, you know, and now the tools are available for us to do that. So the company was, you know, I was fortunate enough, and they were.
Did that opportunity present itself, or did somebody say, hey, you know, we have now this department opportunity where you can work remote and you can go down to LA to the office And if it's a remote operation, why not be able to work off of San Diego and stay here with your parents,
right,
your family?
Right. So I think for us, it's first started with our group, right? We were expanding, we were getting a lot more work. And so just our facility was getting overwhelmed with just space in general, right? And so, the opportunity was presented to everybody. It's like, hey, anybody who's interested in doing remote work, the opportunity's there. And so for me, obviously being in the Bay Area for 11 years, I've been wanting to be closer down to my family.
Right.
But here in LA, they had offices as well. But I also had another coworker who was planning to move down to LA as well because he had family here as well. And so I think it was being able to still have some coworkers be with me, here in LA, and at the same time I still had other collaboration projects with employees here in LA as well that made sense to be with people. So I think an aspect is just coming down here, not being by myself with other, employee wise. And so having other coworkers around me, I think also, factored into, being down here in LA.
Making that decision of a reality.
Right.
So I've also seen you're very active in supporting the community within the college universities. Is that something that you're doing because Northrop Grumman actually supports you, or is that a program within an affinity group within Northrop Grumman, or is that something that you're doing on your own?
No, so I mean it's something that an opportunity that came through what we call an employee resource group, an ERG, or if you will, at Northrop Grumman called Adelante.
Okay. That's for Latinos within Northrop Grumman.
Well, it's an organization that caters towards the needs of the Latino community, right? Whether you're Latino or not, I mean, it's
open to everybody.
Right, it's inclusive to everybody.
It's more of an affinity group, or if you're a Latino and you want to identify with this culture, you can definitely go in. And as you said, an employee resource group, it's open to everybody and anybody from different race, background, as long as you're aligned with the mission and the vision of Adelante to support Latino empowerment and or reach out to those diversity group individuals in the universities, then you can definitely also do
so one of the pillars, if you will, of employee resources group in Adelante is community outreach and student engagement, if you will. And so a big part of what we do is reach out to students, whether it's middle school students, high school students, or college students. And so we would often partner with them to hold events and try to give back as engineers to a lot of students who aspire to one day be engineers themselves.
Through your 11-year career with Northrop Grumman, what's been the biggest reward within your job as a professional that you can say, I'm proud of this, or this is the highlight of my career at this point?
Right. So in the aerospace industry, it's not like building a phone, right? Where you can, turn around a phone every year.
Right.
These are massive systems that require many years and long development cycles. And so for me, it's been working on certain programs that, that start from the concept to planning to design, and then eventually see it come to fruition. And so being a part of a really long program for me has been really fulfilling, right? Where you, at least my role is to do analysis and do predictions and to model the behavior of the system, right? So
from that point of actually doing the analysis, running through the predictions, it's something to do in the computer, but it's something else to actually see it perform and to get that performance test data and to match it up to those predictions and to say, oh my God, I got it right, or I got it within a certain deviation.
Exactly.
But I'm pretty close.
Right.
So that gives you more confidence as to, hey, what I'm doing it right.
Absolutely, right.
And that makes you proud to be able to see that happen within your professional.
Yeah, I mean, to see these massive systems, come to life, where, again, first it starts on a calculation, and on a computer, and actually see it built and perform the way you predicted. I mean, it's a cool feeling.
That's awesome. I'm going to go into a couple more questions that are not related to engineering.
Sure.
What, if you could have any superpower, what would your superpower be? It could be anything.
Wow. I guess it would be, I don't know, I guess you could say to fly. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to fly would be pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if it's just because, again, always thought rockets were pretty cool, and planes, but you know, again, seeing, nature documentaries, looking at like a condor, for example, that's the bird that I believe flies the highest, it's just, what it would be like to just glide up in the air. So that would be pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned your parents pushed you hard and they wanted to have you do well, and you had a library at home. Off of that library, obviously you probably read some cool books, but what is the book that you would recommend students, individuals, professionals that wanted to keep motivated and move forward? What would be a book or something that motivates people that you would recommend?
Let's see. There's a book called Talent is Overrated.
Talent is Overrated.
I thought was a good read. Yeah. The gist of it is that anything you want to be good at, right, is requires what they refer to as deliberate practice, right? Yeah, you need to put effort and practice on things, but you need to practice in deliberate ways.
Right.
And so often, what dictates success in most people's life is not your talent, right, or your natural ability,
right,
but your ability to, look at a skill and practice it in a very specific way, to get better at it over time. And so, and you have to push yourself enough that it stretches you, but not too much that it overwhelms you. And so you find that kind of sweet spot. So I felt that was...
Talent is Overrated.
Right.
That's a book that you recommend that made an impact on you, and that you hope that some individuals watching or listening to this actually pick up and benefit from. If you could go back, in time and go back to 2005, to that Memorial Day weekend, to that hospital bed, and talk to Joseluis that is suffering and going through that doubtful time, what are 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would share with that younger individual?
That it's going to be okay. I mean, that it's going to be okay, but that to realize that oftentimes things happen to you in life, not to, oftentimes to what I like to think of is to induce character growth, right? Or to induce growth in you for whatever reason, and that all that happens to you is to push you in a certain direction and to teach you certain lessons. That had you not had these experiences, right, you wouldn't grow in certain ways.
Right.
And that we're all given different abilities, right, and different opportunities, right? And at least for me, that, and so, we're all grow up and learn and cultivate different abilities and have different opportunities. And so, if I could go back and tell something to myself, like, this happened to you, but it happened to you because you were given the abilities to deal with it and get past it.
Right.
Whether it's, the character and my studies and my talents and, all of that, but also I was also given and blessed with an amazing network around me, support network, starting with my family, and obviously all of my friends and now all my peers and coworkers.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. So with that, I'm going to ask you what the definition of success is for you at this point. I mean, you've obviously achieved quite a bit. You've overcome so many obstacles. But at this point, what is the definition of success for you that you could share with the audience?
For me is starting off, on a new skill or a new endeavor and failing at it initially because you haven't practiced it, and so over time you work at it. You have that deliberate practice.
Right. So being persistent,
and you get better at it.
Right.
And you get competent at it. And once you get competent at it, you start to enjoy it.
Okay.
Once you start to enjoy it, you
become proficient.
You become proficient at it. You start to contribute, and you start to contribute, and then you can then start to help others. And so, for me, I guess success is being really bad at something at first, practicing it, getting good at it, being proficient at it, and eventually contributing to everybody else that skill, whether it's helping them or producing something that would help somebody else.
Right. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with Success Innovation. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. And if you want to connect with Joseluis Naranjo, you can do that at the LinkedIn. I'll provide his connection at the bottom in the descriptions. So please reach out to him with any questions or comments that you feel are appropriate. And with this, Lázaro Herrera from Success Innovation, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you for having listened to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. I hope you enjoyed listening or watching the episode as much as I enjoyed making it. This one was truly a fantastic opportunity for me. I definitely learned a lot from Joseluis Naranjo. His story is fascinating and amazing. It is a story of resilience and persistence. Dedication has driven him and taken him to an apex of success. I hope that you can share this with anybody else that would benefit from it, and that is the only fee from me to you. Please share this, subscribe to the channel, and allow others to learn and to benefit from this type of interviews. I'll see you next time. Lázaro Herrera from Success Innovation. Thank you.